Hold on. This is a Doom multiplayer retrospective. If we're gonna do it, we're gonna have to do it right. We gotta play the song that defined a generation. Doom, a game released for DOS back in 1993. It's a first-person shooter and a fantastic showcase of game design, resulting in a game that I still believe is fun to play today. It's a fast-paced game about running around and killing monsters. I feel like I don't need to describe Doom that much. I think most people know what it is, even if they haven't even played it. Being truthful, Doom is probably one of my most played games ever. Well, technically Doom 2, as it's the most common one used for modding and such, but I guess they're the same game. I love Doom, and I have played it so much, mostly modded of course, because, well, you may know. But where did it all start for me? Where did it all begin? Well, one thing interesting is that a majority of my time spent playing Doom was multiplayer, online multiplayer, which I think will give this a pretty unique perspective, as this is going to focus on somewhat wild stories from back then and such. Let me say this, the Doom community at the time, and even now, oh man, what a cluster of absolute degenerates. And I was there to witness it, and let me tell you, I don't know how I came out moderately okay. Trust me, I was scarred, and there are memories I'll never forget, but that's the stuff I hold dear. What's crazy is that some of these people still play Doom online to this day, and you might think they'd have to cope with the survival of this, but somehow they're still the exact same all these years later. The Doom multiplayer community is like a time capsule, because even now there's still just a bunch of sick gyms living in the early 2000s. I'll say this now, I've been avoiding Doom videos for a while, because my computer makes it look pretty terrible, alongside a multitude of other reasons. I'm still gonna avoid doing Doom videos until I get a better computer, which maybe never, but you know, I can act like I'm making progress towards something. But I'm fine with doing a side video like this. So without further ado, get your cornbread out, come on, and let's start at the beginning. Now I know what you're thinking. Dang, Spacey, you weren't kidding when you said your computer makes Doom footage look bad. And no, it's not this terrible. This is Doom on the Super Nintendo, a port. And well, this is my first ever experience with Doom. Yeah, I know, very quaint, huh? And how could I not play it? The cartridge was a striking red. It standed out amongst all my SNES games. Made you think it was special. Maybe it is. This is an impressive port for what it is. Creative has done a lot of crazy things. There's some pretty interesting things with it too, like having the pistol pickup sprite, or how this is normal Doom and not Ultimate Doom. So a lot of secrets are different, and there are only 3 episodes, but I mean, look at it. This is EMU, so it does look a little better here than me playing on a 300 by 300 TV under my pool table. It controls kind of sloppy. I don't think there are any strafe controls. Turning is way too slow, but it's not delayed. It still feels good, even if it nowadays kind of hurts my head. Still better than most modern first-person shooters. I could never make it far either, because the only way to play the other episodes is to play on higher difficulties or beat a previous episode on a lower difficulty. But yeah, this is a horror game, like actually pretty scary. There were no quick saves, so death was pretty terrifying, but because of the graphics, you could never tell what was up ahead, like literally what are you looking at. And when you're a kid with no info on the game, you don't know what is an enemy and what isn't. You didn't know like all the enemies. Like this game would have like 900 enemies. I didn't know. I was just a kid. And look at the Doom guy's face at the bottom of the screen. Freaky. So yeah, maybe my Doom experience wasn't off to a great start, But when you were young and video games were just starting to be a common thing, you didn't really know good games from bad games. Hell, I played a ton of games that are actually terrible, but I like them, and I'm actually kind of good at them. Games were just games. Believe it or not, sometimes when playing modern Doom mods, I lower the resolution to 320 by 240, kind of like the SNES days. I'm not sure why, but I find this to be pretty in its own way. It's comforting, man. Anyways, sometime down the pipeline, some so years later, I got my hands on the shareware versions of Doom, Heretic, Hexen, the best one, all that. And these were a lot more of a proper experience, even if they weren't the full game. I think my first full playthrough was through the Xbox versions of the games. They had local and online multiplayer, not like I had anyone to play with, but I'd like to imagine I did. This all happened over the span of years. I wasn't too big on the Doom and in the community and all that. So here I was, screwing about on YouTube. It was a far different time, probably on my journey to discover whatever the hell Puyo Puyo was. Hey, look, it looks like Kirby's Avalanche, you know? And this is when it happened. Now, I'm pretty sure this happened before I got into Z-Daemon, but I'm not entirely sure, so we'll talk about the Z-Daemon arc later. But I saw this video on a mod called Z-Doom Wars, and this is where it all began. Skulltag, man. Skulltag was the source port used to play these multiplayer mods. It was released in like 2005, so I came in pretty late. Around 2012 it got cancelled and essentially replaced by Xandronum, which is pretty funny. I remember taking a break around that time and coming back like, oh, we're on this Xandronum thing now. Skulltag was an interesting time. I remember people hosting all sorts of random mods, stuff you'd see and play like once in your life, be like, wow, that was cool, and then you just never see it again. It's a lot different from nowadays, man. I also had an IRC chat, a friends list, all stuff I participated in. I remember getting called up in the IRCs and private messages and invited to play in private servers and such. It was cool. But yeah, the mod that got me into this all, I'm pretty sure, was Z-Doom Wars. Z-Doom Wars. So in normal Doom, monsters could infight when they attacked each other. I always loved to watch them fight and see who won. It was also a good way to save ammo too, I suppose. I would love to do a Twitch predictions thing with the Hate Arena someday. I used to do a lot of summon friend and such in the console to see these fights. I always loved playing the summoner and such in games, being able to have allies fight for you. It's like having friends but not. So basically, Z-Doom Wars is like an RTS, but you're in the battlefield. You pick one of many different Doom Engine games, you know, Heretic, Hexen, the best one, Chex, etc. And you summon monsters, battling out with other players in Last Man Standing or Team Last Man Standing. Though I guess you could really do it in any game mode you felt like. You could play through a normal Doom campaign. That's kind of the cool thing with mods. Anyways, you summon monsters using mana, which is a regenerative ammo, coming in both the forms of normal mana and hero mana. Hero mana recovers slower and are needed for the stronger units. Mana is dropped by enemies that fall in combat, alongside other helpful items depending on the class. It encourages you to stay active in the battlefield, with strong monsters dropping large amounts of mana, meaning you and other players will always be sitting around dying strong monsters ready to collect that mana, but you don't want to stay too close or you'll die, because your own monsters can hurt you too. It's a pretty fun battle. You have an unlock tree at that top right corner over there. It differs between classes, but it makes it so you have to summon weaker monsters in order to summon stronger ones. So you can't just start the battle up saving for a Cyber Demon, you have to build it up over the battle. At its very best, Z-Doom Wars is about quickly unlocking certain monsters, taking control of certain points on a map, knowing when and when not to step into battles. Battles themselves being strategic and dynamic, knowing which monsters to quickly switch to and summon to deal with what scenarios to counter setups. Going on crazy rushes into an opponent's base while they're getting attacked from the outside. I wasn't very great at it, but it was fun. The big problem is that if you're playing Last Man Standing, people would just camp and summon on their own, build their own fortress, and not even interact with the game. Like, what? Why? Which is a lot less exciting than having an actual dynamic battle with another player. Maps were gigantic, and I mean ultra large. Oh man, that reminds me, there were like a lot of songs here by Waterflame. Y'all remember Waterflame? I think they still upload. And there was a player in the community named Waterflame, but would always dodge the question whether or not they were the musician. Trust me, I'm going to go on a lot of random tidbits like this a lot. Anyways, maps were huge and basically encouraged camping. As you would imagine, Some of the more popular maps were the smaller ones. It wasn't uncommon to get vote called to this map called like the Blazing Coliseum, I think. Just this ultra small map that forced you to actually duke it out. Camping was a lot less prevalent on Team Last Man Standing because you actually had to be there for your team, which I guess is kind of now the standard for Z-Doom Wars. That is, when you ever see people play it. Even so, matches could still take like 30 minutes to an hour. If you joined a server and a match just started, you might as well go do something else. Like, it was kind of a common courtesy for people to call vote to the same map as a restart if the match just started and there were a ton of spectators. Also, depending on your computer, things could get really laggy with all the monsters on screen. I remember if you spammed enough bishops, you could actually crash the server. Z-Doom Wars is a lot different nowadays, but we'll get to that later. So you might be wondering, what class do I play? I was originally a Chex gamer. I really like the item that lets you revive dead enemies and crap, and the Chex Manton is hilarious.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
But I eventually moved on to Heretic, which focused a lot more on ghost units and spam. And let me tell you, ghost units could straight up shut out some classes. I then moved on to Hexen. I know, probably the one you expected me to choose from the start. While I kinda like them, and still play Hexen sometimes, I mean their units are super strong, but high cost units kinda turned me off. Nowadays, I play Virus. I know you're probably wondering, what the hell is a Virus? I don't remember this on the Doom engine. It's its own thing, don't worry about it. But Virus is fun, you get to fly around, and I liked a lot of the units. Trust me, I always champion the leader, even if it always got me clowned on. One of the cool things is that down the line there were eventual add-ons that added more classes like Arena, Realm 667, Blood, etc. Trust me, on a modded server I'm playing the... am I allowed to say this word? Nazi class. They're fun. Or at least I would be, but as it turns out nobody hosts that class anymore. Might be a team thing, custom classes had trouble with team play for a while. But the Blood one is cool too. You can spend the whole game creating a weed farm and not interacting with anyone, which is kind of a vibe. But nobody hosts the Blood one either? Huh. Okay, so let's get to the story time. Clans! Clans were always and are always rampant in online Doom, in any online game really. It's typically a very helpful way of denoting if someone is a dickhead or not. Yeah, I'll come out clean. I don't think I've met a single clan member that was ever a decent person, even now. If you ever come across a clan member, hit the DNI. Do not interact. Block them, and if they try to recruit you, treat them like the man with the white van and dip. And I know what you're thinking, spacing, that's just your opinion. And actually, it's not. It's a proven fact that people in Doom clans are just terrible. There's one exception to this rule though, and we'll get to that later. Anyways, clans were terrible, but they did some funny things. How they worked is basically clans would champion a certain game mode or game mod and just heavy focus on it, like you would not see them doing anything else. In which case, Z-Doom Wars' clan was the V clan. And man, were they a wild ride. At first they were all named after Pokemon, like you had like an Electabuzz, there was like a Flareon, a Gardevoir. Most of them changed their names since though. But yeah, they contributed quite a bit to this mod, which is typically how things go. Clans you can't stand, but they keep the mod alive by adding stuff to it. It's pretty normal. So what did they do? Listen, I believe in you guys here, and I believe you guys have some vivid imagination, because I couldn't get footage for a lot of this. There was a V map pack. It was kind of controversial. Remember how I said Z-Doom Wars was pretty camp heavy during Last Man Standing? Well, a lot of V maps had a time limit until a map exclusive boss comes in and starts tearing things up. You had like a super hyper Baratus that would spawn and like play the Macho Man theme song and stuff. There were original Z-Doom Wars maps that had bosses, but they took so long to spawn it basically never happened. I actually liked it and I thought it was awesome, but I saw a bit of complaints. I like the Pokemon map, I wish I could show you it, but the V map pack has seemingly been wiped from reality space. Anyways, you couldn't really complain either because V were hosting the server most of the time. And I'll get to this later, but having Archon server access, oh man, the things you could do. V servers were wacky. You'd be having a normal match and then one of the mods would change the music to like Paper Planes or the Macho Man theme. Maps would randomly switch around, super bosses would be spawned early due to puke commands, all that stuff. They made custom classes too, well at least one member did. I'm gonna try not to name too many names. I don't know if many of these people are proud of the dumb things they've done. The premier V-Clan class was the Pimp class, which you can be sure was not getting hosted anywhere else but here. It was a wacky class, even for the time it was outdated meme hell, summoning Macho Man, Chuck Norris, all that. Funnily enough, the Macho Man summon actually force changed the song to the Macho Man song server-wise. I think it got balanced over time, but bro, this is like the only picture I have of it because I just couldn't get it to work, and maybe that's for the best. The same creator, I believe, also made the Arena class, which I actually like. I think they have a cool gimmick, though going back to it nowadays, it's different. I think it got a graphical overhaul or something. I remember commentating a few matches, like just through in-game text, no voice, just full commentary. What's funny about all the time I spend in this community is that you just never forget the other people with you along the way, because they played for years too, and a lot of them still play. I remember one of the people I commentated with disappeared for years, only to come back in a whodunit server at midnight like, "I'm back, guys." And we were like, yeah, welcome back, WB. And then they were like, "Yeah, I went to prison for a few years because I..." because, you know what, I actually probably shouldn't say what they did. But we were just like dazed out of our minds at DGen o'clock. "Whoa, man, that's crazy. Let's play some whodunit though." And they were like, yeah, let's get it. This community's cracked, dude. Nowadays, well, like most mods, D-Doom Wars isn't played very often, if at all. It's rare, but it's not like I'm checking those servers every day, you know? But when it is, it's typically, if not always, played with fast mana. Like, I'm not sure if people ever want to go back to Z-Doom Wars without fast mana. And it does what you think it says. It just makes the matches more fast-paced, and maybe camping not as likely. I'm not really good at reacting to such fast speed. Usually my mana caps before I know what to do. I also found a server hosting some interesting team games where you have to capture spots. This would definitely stop camping. But yeah, Z-Doom Wars was what started me off on this wild ride. Of course, with all these mods, I'll be jumping throughout their history with them. I didn't just focus on one mod at the time, I played others too, but keeping each mod section like this is good for pacing and sanity. Alright, let's take a break and talk about some normal Doom multiplayer. This was either before Z-Doom Wars or after, but let's talk about the Z-Daemon arc of this retrospective. Dang, I'm really gonna have to download Z-Daemon again. Also, I know it's probably pronounced Z-Demon, but what sounds cooler? Sit down. Z-Daemon is older than Skulltag, 2001 I believe, but it still gets updated today. Like most multiplayer clients, it's its own source port. It differs from Skulltag and Zandronum as it doesn't support Decorate, so no crazy mods basically. There are some other source ports like this too, but I never bothered much with them, like Odamex was probably popping off at the time. So yeah, when I say the Doom multiplayer community, I mostly mean Zandronum and Skulltag. Though booting up Z-Daemon nowadays, well, it's a lot emptier than I remember. Still people playing, I guess. I'm sad I don't remember my old account. Would love to see my old buddies in IRC messages. Listen, while all these crazy and wacky mods are fun, I think it's important to talk about the more standard Doom multiplayer game modes. Skulltag had these too. I remember having a lot of fun in old Invasion servers back then. Let's not get things twisted. I love Doom's gameplay. I think classic deathmatch servers and such are a ton of fun. Fast movement, one-shotting people with the super shotgun, it's all I need really. I am perfectly fine playing game modes without the need for custom weapons and the such. I actually have a lot of fun memories playing new game modes like that, but it didn't add anything new. But I just can't say I remembered them too clearly though. Like, I think there was one about collecting like coins, like there was like these giant large DK coin looking things scattered across the map. I don't remember what it's called. You know how it is with these new mods, you see them once and you never see them again. But I do remember Z-Daemon for two things. First, capture the flag. The hours I spent on CTF. I love Doom CTF. Some of these maps will be ingrained into me for the rest of the time. I hope I can find footage of that one. It was like a 2 castles. Yeah, that's it. There was no feeling like getting an insane run with a flag and capturing it while your teammates came through and backed you up. Or chasing the player that has your team's flag just on this mad dash, taking them out, and then grabbing your flag and returning it to base. There was no other feeling. I mean, I can't really express how cool most of these mods are because I'm playing with bots obviously, but imagine I had friends and I was playing with them, okay? But the other things I remember from Z-Daemon is cooperative. Doom Coop, man. What an awesome experience. Just you and a bunch of others playing through map packs, and the skins are essential. It's crazy how these skins are still kind of around to this day, huh? What's cool with Xandrinum is that the skins can be client-sided, so you can still use skins even if others won't see it. But they will see it if they also have the skin client-sided. It's so cool to go into a server with no skins and seeing other players using skins, and it's like, hey! But anyways, Doom Coop. I don't remember a lot of the map packs, but I do remember DB Zone, Doom Barracks Zone. At the time I was playing, DB Zone was huge. People loved it. I think it was by a clan, and honestly, it's a pretty hype map pack. Really tough, and playing it nowadays by yourself is pretty unfun. I think you need infinite ammo and the such to carry. It might not have aged well, but it's still nostalgic going back to it. Like the midis mixed in with all the dumb skin sounds. God, I feel young again. If there's anything over a decade of Doom mods have ingrained into me, it's that I think MIDI music is sick, man. It's crazy how many DB Zone maps I remember. I don't know if Z-Damon had a setting to disable this at the time, but I remember a lot of friendly fire. The level spawns were just bloodbath, and it's only when you left it would you find people just playing the level normally. But a lot of the times, people just didn't shoot at each other either. They would chill. Ah man, DB Zone takes me back. There was another one I remember, but I don't remember the name of it. It was one I remember loving a ton too. I was even buddies with someone who claimed to be the creator of it and such, so they probably weren't, but you guys need to help me on this one. All I remember is that on the first map, had you like entering this large building, and the song for the map was a MIDI of Jump by Van Halen. Honest to God, this map pack may just be lost to time. Maybe someday I'll find it again. Another game mode I loved, which I played mostly on Skulltag and Xandrinum, was Survival. It was like Coop, but you had a limited amount of lives. Losing them all and you're just spectating. And if everyone loses them, you gotta do the map again. Due to this, everyone kind of played like a Pop-Tart, but it's the real cooperation. And shoutouts to the real team players, calling out medkits and trying to get everyone out alive. I got you kind of stuff. I love when people are really into it too. Like when you're the last player left and everyone is cheering you on, ghosting out enemies like, oh, there's a chain gunner behind the door, look out bro. Or, that red key card is a monster closet, be careful. Oh man, there's something nostalgic about this, you know? I have a lot of that feeling for just vanilla Doom multiplayer, maybe a bit chocolatey because of the custom maps, but it still feels like Doom. Not these crazy custom mods that stray very far from Doom's core gameplay, even if most of my time with Doom have been spent with these kinds of mods. So with that in mind, let's dive back and talk about some other random mods along the way. Now I'm not going to talk about every mod I played because some of them I just don't have any interesting stories on and such, but some I definitely do. I'm going to avoid talking about more modern Doom mods because while these are cool, like Push is pretty awesome, Doom WarioWare 1 is kind of a cool idea, and class-based modification might just be the second most played Doom mod for me. But I want to keep it nostalgic, you know, stuff that I played at the time. Here's a fun one. It's an asymmetrical multiplayer game where one player gets chosen to become the activator while all the other players become runners, having to try to make it through the map while the activator activates these traps to kill them. As long as one runner gets to the exit, the running team wins. Everyone dies, activator wins. It definitely wasn't balanced. Some maps were easier for one side than the other, and if the server didn't disable chase cam, you could just see what the activator was doing by peeping through the wall. It was a lot of trying to bait out the activator, and in large servers, pushing other players to their death, even though you guys were on the same team. Sometimes you get these brave soldiers that would just speedrun the map before the activator could react, which was always embarrassing as the activator because you'd get clowned on for that. Mix that with all the different skins spamming taunt alongside runners having a weapon that plays a clapping sound, and you got a clown fest. I think my favorite grime, which sadly I can't show, is this strat where if two runners rubbed against each other, like face to face, they would get this super horizontal launch. So that was a strat that I would do with other players. We would just launch across the map. Nowadays I only see Death Run hosted in private servers. I've already covered this one. It's Dodgeball Doom. Back in the ye olde variety days, I remember playing a lot with people. I could only last a couple of hours on it, but there were some jank strats, like maps where you can jump to the opposite team's side if you had some jump maze skills. That's pretty good. I remember one time being bored as hell in a computer class with like 3 other kids because nobody took it, and the teacher didn't care either. So I just told my friend, let's play some Dodgeball Doom. And we downloaded the crap, and it was just the two of us playing, and we managed to get a whole server started. And this was quite a bit after the mod died out. Maybe that just goes to show how easy it is to get a server populated. Oh god, All Out Wars 2? This was basically a team RTS where players would play different roles and over the course of a potentially very long match take out the enemy's HQ and win, or at a certain time limit deplete their lives. Whenever you died, you'd be taken to the class selection area where you could buy various add-ons, and classes themselves costed money. You got money for doing a lot of different things. So you'd have the people that would blow their money on a class with guns and crap and just run out and die. You'd have the builders building all these complicated stairs, sandbags, turrets, the people repairing bases. I always played the Tiberium Refiner, which basically consisted of an endless fetch quest of running to a certain part of the map, getting a crystal, and returning it to base, which would give everyone on your team money, but it gave you in particular a ton of money, so I was rich as hell by the end game. It was very tactical, and kinda hard because people really just did whatever. I think my greatest moment was the one time I bought this super gun, and right when my team was about to lose, I found this blind spot and started firing the gun at the enemy base, and I managed to clutch out a win. Nobody was there to see my act, but I carried y'all that game. I think the balancing was the funniest part of it, All Out War 2 though. At one point, you could buy a rocket pistol. And let me tell you, rocket pistols are my favorite gun in any game, but you never see them. And man, was the rocket pistol here degenerate. It was either really bad or super busted. I don't even remember because it got removed so fast. My favorite era though was the chainsaw one. So you could buy a chainsaw at the class selection room, right? Why? Well, at one point in this mod's lifespan, the chainsaw had an alt fire where you could throw it. And not only was this a massive hitbox, like I swear this crap was bugged, but I promise you, this one-shotted everything in this game. You could spend all of your money on this super powerful class with all these weapons just to lose it all from someone who bought a chainsaw and nothing else, yeeting it across the map and sniping you. Chainsaw throwing may be back now, but I think it's been heavily nerfed. I'm not sure. I mean, do you think I actually play this crap often? Whenever I do, it's just me running back and forth for 20 minutes while my teammates call me slurs because I won't donate them money so they can waste it all on a mech and then die instantly. All Out War 2 used to be really common, but like, basically every mod here, you never see it anymore. Also, for some reason, everyone always went to map 2. If the server was at a different map, everyone would call vote to map 2. Alright. Oh snap, that reminds me of Eons of Death. Okay, Eons of Death was a single player mod. It was basically this giant bloated as hell randomizer. It's actually pretty fun. It got a Kako award for being like the worst mod ever or some crap, which really goes to show the Kako awards is a bunk fest. Anyways, so we were just playing on multiplayer. Some guy comes in the server and they're like, I'm gonna host an Eons of Death server. Y'all should join. And we were all like, that's not gonna work. You can't host Eons of Death. That crap is way too big. But there was only enough people to fill one server when it came to the Zoom community. So we were basically on the server. And so we all left and we checked out this Eons of Death server. It took like a year to download everything because Eons of Death was bloated. So we joined the server and only like 5 people entered the game because the rest just watched as the server was like 4 FPS. Everything was just like teleporting around. It looked terrible. And then like the server crashed. Like a couple minutes in, server crashed. That crap was never hosted again. Maybe you can host it now, but I don't know. That was always a funny story. Somebody actually tried to host that crap. Okay, what's next? Zombie Horde. Boring as hell like always. Next. No, I mean, Zombie Horde is an infection game mode, where at match start, one player is turned into a zombie and has to infect the others using a melee claw swipe while they get the hell shot out of them. There were 2 kinds of maps, ZE maps and ZM maps. ZE stood for Zombie Escape, ZM stood for Boring as Hell. All ZM is just surviving for a certain time period on a map. It's a camp fest. And if you're a zombie, it's just getting knocked back and set on fire for like 5 minutes until you die. It's not fun. It's like playing hide and seek, except for when you hide, you can go AFK and get some food. Zombie Horde is always unbalanced. Either a single zombie gets decimated and that's it, or there are so many zombies it's not even possible to win. Zombie escape maps are more fun. They were about running around and getting to each checkpoint of a linear map, holding out, and then running again to the next checkpoint. Some of these were quite the adventure, leading all sorts of places, and they had some tense end sequences. If you survived, you even got a chance to get an item. But yeah, I never really liked Zombie Horde unless if it was just ZE maps. I guess it's kind of like playing prop hunt. Nobody wants to be the hunter, they want to be the one hiding and being chased. The add-ons were pretty funny though. Bagel Horde is a little too recent, but it's probably the funnest way to play ZH nowadays. It's a whack fest, all the zombies are bagels, and at the start of every match, everyone gets a random item crate, and let me tell you, things get crazy. But before that, there was this one I can't remember the name of, but it kind of had the same idea of Bagel Horde in terms of having wacky items. This one had a bunch of wacky gun effects. I remember one made you shoot explosives, and you could just rocket jump with bullets and sequence break nearly every map in the game. That was pretty good. I remember it had different blood toggle effects. That would probably help you find it, I guess. Zombie Horde is actually kind of played every once in a while, maybe like once a week. You'll see a server for it.
Charge up!
Oh man, a total classic! Made off of the popular Ghouls Forest series, even made by the same creator of Ghouls Forest, Cutman Mike. It's a team class-based shooter, where you could play as the popular ghouls or the humans. I can't talk much about the original, but the version that was popping off when I was in the scene was Nordic Saga. Nordic Saga was awesome. Banging music too. It really had a rocking energy to it. GBH had some cool classes, like the Choke that could one-shot you across the map, or the Ghostbuster that could lay down traps, had the Proton Pack, and could even change their weapon depending on what ghoul they killed. Nordic Saga added some fun classes. I was a Santa main. Santa was like a poverty Ghostbuster, and I basically died whenever I lost all my star cannons and my present traps failed. Barbarian was great, and I have a special shout out to the Warlock and the no-brains that played that class, proceeding to use all their ammo on one attack that sometimes worked, mostly didn't, and then died. I remember the Creeper was really popular at the time. Creeper was a ghoul that you could only see on the ground, which as you would imagine is pretty busted on some maps. The Creeper could stun you and then one-shot you, which honestly, one-shotting was pretty common for the ghouls. That was like their thing. Also, a lot of boring people who played the Lightning Bow Hunter, Railgun, Instajib, Hit Scan, Sweat Lords. The next saga that came out was Ghouls vs. Human Legacy of Darkness, which I am actually not a big fan of. I don't know what it is exactly. I didn't like the new classes. I don't think I liked a single change it made. And maybe it was just the people that played it, but the vibe just wasn't the same as Nordic Saga. Maybe once in a while you see a Nordic Saga server being played on, but I guess the current saga is on GBH's Multiverse. This is a tad more recent, so I'll be quick. Multiverses gets a lot of hate. It's basically GBH, but with a ton of different classes. A lot of weird classes too. You can play a ghoul that summons goddamn fire extinguisher zombies. There's a ton of different classes to learn and fight, and I actually really like it. Like, I love playing Vivian, and all I do with her is use the pistol and do Wahoo Mario jumps. And for once, I actually like playing the ghouls. There are some fun ghouls in this. It used to get updated a lot. I don't know now. I mean, coming back, I'm still seeing new classes, so I guess it still is. I was a big fan of the Caleb class before he was nerfed. In fact, changes are pretty common. I remember there was this human class called Meepy that could shrink themselves. And because your hurt box was so small from shrinking, you could just leave certain maps through small holes and such. Just leave the map and that would be it. Oh man. Hey, Future Spacey here. I'm in a tornado at the moment, don't worry about it. But I just wanted to bring up that I completely forgot about how back then everyone had a bind. Like a bind that you would press a button and you would automatically say something in chat. Everyone had an Indeed bind. So someone would say something like 5 people would press their bind and say Indeed in their colors. I don't know why that was such a thing. But yeah, this isn't scripted or anything. I feel like I had something else to say. Yeah, I guess I don't. Alright, we're gonna get back on with the video. I think it's time to get to the main talking point of this video. Yeah, I know you just went to the timeline bar like, oh god, there's more. I said before that class-based modification is my second most played Doom mod, which honestly, that's more of a Mega Man 8-bit deathmatch mod, which could be seen more as a game made in the Doom engine and not a Doom mod. God, I hate terminology sometimes. These are all just games made in the Doom engine to me, you know? Or well, Z-Doom engine, I guess. But anyways, what I'm about to talk about is my most played Doom mod. And as of the current moment, which is, it's starting to shift. The continents are starting to shift, I won't lie. All these years later, as of now, my favorite multiplayer game ever made. It is a game that I have so many memories of. I'm not sure if I will ever be able to talk about them all. Let me tell you about Who Done It. Golly, Whodunit is an asymmetrical multiplayer game done perfectly. Players are dropped into a map, and after a short timer, one player becomes the murderer, tasked with killing the other players. You might be looking around the map and wondering where the guns are. Well, Whodunit is a very melee-focused game. Guns are rare, often requiring keys randomly placed around the map to open secret rooms, which even then they might not even spawn there, and ammo can be super scarce to the point where grabbing a gun might not be worth it. A majority of this mod is having insanely skillful encounters with other players, baiting and punishing attacks. You need timing too, every weapon feels different, so much so that there are weapons I don't like and some I do. Like you got the wrench, with a 3-hit combo and a long delay between the initial swing. It's pretty difficult to learn despite being such a common weapon. The pool cue, super long range, high stun, but low damage and is pretty slow. The old reliable shovel, fan favorite, great damage, great stun, easy to use, but pretty hard to find. Even the pipe, a weapon that you just spam, requires the skill to move around your opponent because you aren't out DPSing them. And this is just a fraction of these weapons. So what's interesting about all of these weapons is that the murderer takes more damage from all of them. You may be scratching your head right now like, shouldn't the murderer be super strong? This is an asymmetrical multiplayer game, right? The single player has to be strong. Listen, the murderer can get folded in seconds. If you think you can run into a group and wreck mayhem, dude, the shotgun can one-shot you most of the time. And when the murderer dies, well, there goes the battle. So what's so good about being the murderer? Well, you look like everyone else. And with the ability to change colors, you can blend in after a kill, hide bodies using exploits. That's when the group paranoia aspect comes in. Due to how weapons are spread on most maps and spawns in general, the beginning of the game typically has everyone splitting up, eventually forming groups, or maybe you're like me, going lone wolf, I can't trust the pack. All it takes is someone nobody has ever seen to show up, and everyone readies their weapons. Backs against the wall, accusations are thrown out, people start checking each other, maybe even killing each other, all while the real murderer chills out and watches. And then, boom, Bertholite canister. The murderer has a set of special items, smoke bombs, Bertholite gas explosions, RNG hell trip shotguns, fake healing items, and just when you think you're safe, the knife. This is a weapon that is exclusive to the murderer. It's powerful, gives a speed boost, has a lunge motion, and is an insta-kill from behind. This is why players typically have their backs to one another. The thing about Whodunit, an extremely important design factor of it, is that all weapons have an associated sprite with them. And if the knife is a weapon only the murderer can pull out, well, that points a very obvious target, huh? But who says you need to kill as the murderer? You can be there up in the front lines, starting mob attacks, joining in. Players get penalized for team killing, the murderer doesn't, so as long as you don't land the final blow, you're okay. Although when the time does come and the group starts chasing you, poof. The murderer's last ability is that they can go into specially marked walls. Here they can restock on health, items, they can come back fully healed. The final mechanic at play is the sanity meter, shown here at the bottom. The murderer replenishes it by taking damage and killing, run out, and it's game over. That's the general gist of gameplay. It's a very interesting game because everyone plays differently. Due to the random player spawns alongside randomized key and weapon spawns, you can never be certain if going out of your way to get a key is worth it, rather than getting heals and a reliable enough weapon. It's never the same route. And the murderers? I know people who can hold the knife out the whole match, use no items, and win. Maybe you can be like, god dang, someone who shall not be named, who has set a record for the amount of bursts they have used in a match. Me, I love the items. I'll put down a really good gun, tell people where it is, then surround it by tripped shotguns, and in case they survive, put a fake stim pack nearby. I promise you I invented the strat of being chased by a bunch of people, running past the doorway, closing the door, and throwing a bertha light at it so when they open it up to a deadly surprise. Or maybe exploit how doors work, trap the bertha light gas in the door making it a near insta-kill to open, found a valuable weapon and want to make sure nobody has it? You can crush it! Besides the door berth, I invented strats as the innocents too. I was the Molotov Monarch. Listen, nobody used the Molotov. It's trash. But I found a spot on every goddamn map where you could trap the murderer and proceeded to hug them to death as you both go out in the flames of hell. It nearly always worked. I almost had a whole montage made for this crap. And because the Molotov flames have extra range on the murderer, you can throw it down around a group and you can see who the murderer is. This only ever worked like once for me though. I'm not even sure if it's true. Let me tell you, the maps in Whodunit, maybe it's because I don't play a lot of modern games, but these maps have the greatest ambience I've ever experienced in games. I'm not kidding, these maps are beautiful, and I remember their layouts, key locations, everything, down to a T. What does that saying even mean? Need proof? I am one of very, very few people who know how to get the bar key on Halls of Silence. Shoutouts to Abu for that. Y'all need to put their map in. They worked hard on that map and it's good. But now that I've laid everything out, let's get into some hijinks. First of all, the balancing of Whodunit over the years has been crazy. It's been thrown into the hands of so many people that at this point, I don't even know if mechanics that were added in are still in or not. Like at one point, headshots with guns were a thing, and I still don't even know if this got removed. I don't even know if they were headshots, they might have just been random crits. But man, has there been some wacky balance situations. I remember when the fire axe first got introduced, it did like 75 plus damage to the murderer and it struck twice. It was just hilariously overpowered. And then it later got replaced by the hatchet, which was even funnier because the hatchet did 40 damage. Okay, not bad. That's how much the shovel does to the murderer. But no, the hatchet did 40 damage to everyone. So you could 3-shot any player in the server. So it was a team killer's dream, but it was also meta because the murderer could use it to attack people while not revealing they were the murderer, yet still doing as much damage as the knife. The spray can was also insane when it was introduced. It just mowed people down. Nowadays, it's basically just used for running away. There's nothing sadder than when you're with another innocent and the murderer attacks you, and then your partner starts using the spray can because you know they aren't going to do anything. That's kind of how it was. Every time something new got introduced, it was busted in some way. I can't say OG Whodunit was perfect either, mostly for the maps, because there were some funny map bugs, like teleflagging players through teleport doors. There was a map with a murd item hole on the other side of this wall. It's fixed in the footage, but if you rammed the wall at just the right angle, you could pick up a bertha light canister and use it as an innocent. Some of the later maps had special endings that could be activated. The Marsis one had a flooding ending that involved everyone rising to the surface of the planet with water, but for some reason, it was probably the rising water, just for some reason it was so laggy that it just ended up as the murderer and a couple others slowly ascending trying to fight each other at 4 FPS for like 3 minutes. It was glorious. And I guess Whodunit in general is just the kind of game where a lot of funny stuff can happen. Like, I will never get over the match where someone was just throwing bricks at anyone that passed them, and then someone in chat later said, "Some prick is throwing bricks." Like, that's some sort of status report on the situation. Like, yeah, okay, thanks for letting us know about the prick throwing bricks. Man, the community for Whodunit I think it's just the Doom community in general, but boy was there so much drama. Like dudes that just straight up hated each other. Remember how I said everyone in a clan is not to be trusted? That's still true, but there's one exception. One person that was in a clan that could be trusted. Yeah, I was in a clan. I know. I've been trying to atone for my sins since. For the sake of safety of all involved, I won't mention the name of the clan. Remember how I said clans would champion certain mods? Yeah, we were the Whodunit clan. Don't get me wrong, I wasn't that involved. I never scrimmed or anything. And I mean, the last time I dueled someone in Vanilla Doom, I lost 30-0, so maybe that's a good thing. But I did get some benefits. I have modded several Whodunit servers in my lifetime, and let me tell ya, having moderator powers, I was too powerful for my own good. In fact, we were terrible mods. Our servers were popular, but you didn't want to be there. One of the things that you could do is play music from YouTube links as a moderator, and it plays server-wide. It causes lag for everyone because they have to load up the song. But I remember Ahmad and I were just cooling out, playing random jams while everyone on the server yelled at us to stop. My favorite thing to do as a mod is take everyone to the clock tower map that was never finished. Zebra's a crazy person, man. They made some crazy great stuff for Whodunit, but the clock tower map was unfinished. So this map gives players a weapon. It's based off the Clock Tower SNES game, but it gives players a weapon that has a weapon skin that makes them look like Jennifer from Clock Tower, this girl in the dress. But if you were to force change to this map, and then force change to another map, players would keep that weapon. So I'd have a server full of Jennifers running around. Good times. So you may have noticed with previous mods mentioned, there always seemed to be some sort of wacky version made of it, like Bagel Horde and such. Let me tell ya, there's no way you can go over the history of Whodunit without talking about this add-on. An add-on that low-key made a rift in the community, and man was it glorious to see it all go down. Let me tell you about Light Whodunit. It's basically just a fun mod made by a bunch of Whodunit players named after Lightman68 who makes some banging tux guitar jams and stickman art. I guess it's kind of hard to describe this mod, but it's basically just a super fun, silly version of Whodunit. Super randomized too. Tons of new rave kits to jam to. There's the random item crate, which could spawn a ton of different items to change things up. I love the random item crate. This item's cool. It was fresh. The weapons were the selling point. A lot of them are based on community members at the time. These weapons are pretty strong. They're kind of like enhanced versions of the normal weapons. I like the fork because it's like a weak knife, but you can still backstab with it. That's pretty cool, and anyone can do it. If a map had barrels, they'd have the chance to be replaced with Donkey Kong barrels that you can throw at people, of course, or just throw at the wall so then you get a plank weapon. And rarely, very rarely, a barrel could spawn that, oh man, the Baneblade barrel. This basically throws down a barrel that after a few seconds starts an explosion, summoning explosive entities across the entire map, causing anyone who knows of its existence to hide wherever they can hope to survive. But in earlier versions, it took out the server too. So when you had this weapon, you were basically holding the server hostage. I love Light Whodunit. It's such a variable experience, even more so than normal Whodunit. The kind of game where people will just do more whack stuff on their own to the point where the murderer running around is just a side note. There were a lot of fights over which was better between Light Whodunit and normal Whodunit. How Doom multiplayer works is when I say a mod is really popular, what I actually mean is that it has 30 to 60 active players. So there's rarely a time where there will be two separate servers being played of the same mod. So it was either a Whodunit day or a Light Whodunit day, and sometimes you'd be in a Whodunit server and someone would come in like, let's play some Light Whodunit. I think they both have their own place. Light Whodunit is kind of like Dodgeball Doom. I think it's really fun, but I can only play it for a couple of hours before my brain goes to mush. But yeah, I think they can both exist and stand on their own. Wish I could say that about Combat Overhaul. Do we have to talk about this? This isn't even old or nostalgic. But I guess it's worth talking about. By the time this was released, I was taking a pretty big break from Doom. I think it adds like a stamina system. I remember coming back and playing it a couple years back. Only match I played, I grabbed a gun. Some innocent walked up to me, proceeded to beat me up, which knocked the gun out of my hand. They grabbed it and ran off. What the hell were they thinking with this? Whodunit has had quite a bit of add-ons over the years, mostly by one person. They tried to do a sort of holiday seasonal kind of update to Whodunit at one point. There was a Christmas one with secrets and new items. There was like this rave box that turned the ground of the level into ice, so you basically had the power to ruin any map and have people just slide around. That's pretty funny. The creator had a map of their own that would update depending on the season. Christmas had this special Kill Bill ending where you and the murderer would duel it out with katanas while Princess of the Universe by Queen plays. That was awesome. I wish I could show you. The Halloween one had a thriller ending with zombies rising from the ground. That was pretty cool. I remember being invited to some sort of private testing for one of these, where I found a ghetto blaster and a cassette tape and it started playing Superman by Goldfinger. Pretty awesome stuff, honestly. This creator kinda hard carried the Whodunit community, being the one who added a ton of new weapons, sprites, fixing up broken maps. So what's Whodunit like nowadays? Different for sure. I luckily found a server up while writing this script, so I jumped in. Whodunit is still fairly popular. Might have the longest staying power of any mod I've seen. One pleasant surprise was that the server I played on had this random item box add-on, and it's the random item boxes from Lightdunit. I guess it does live on in some way, though I think the randomness has kind of been nerfed on it. Also, side note, I was playing with someone named Laris, and I mean, are we talking Cogdis, or you can't just be coming into the server with that name, you know. So I'll be honest, my Molotov skills were pretty rusty. I was hard messing up easy setups, but I'll also be honest by saying I was never actually good at Whodunit. I have skipped so many stories of times I got absolutely humiliated on huge servers. Shameful times. I'm all about setups and knowledge. My skills are whack, but my brain is, well, nah, I'm still terrible. I'm just terrible at Whodunit, that's all it is. There's some weird death minigame where you can resurrect as a ghost and harass players or something. I don't really get it, some new age crap. One of the new additions to Whodunit is this thing called the Mutilator. It's like a map add-on, but also a different game mode. These take a different twist on the formula by being more cinematic maps. The killer is obvious, you don't have to find out who it is, while everyone else can't defend themselves. They can only run around and do objectives and try not to die. Depending on how many tasks you complete, you can get more items in the final battle to help you out. I'll be honest, I don't really like the Mutilator. It's not a surprise it needs to be attached to Whodunit because nobody would play it standalone. That might be a little rude. But maybe it's just a map knowledge thing. I found myself getting insta-killed by whack jumps, hunted by enemy AI, and generally just dying within a minute. And don't even get me started on that whack maze map where you just wander around a dark maze with a bugged flashlight until you eventually die. Maybe the server had messed up settings, I don't know. Dying brings up this minigame where you and other players can screw around and fight each other, with the player getting the most points getting a bonus item on the next Whodunit map. But then randomly, you're playing the arcade game and then you get forced into the real game to do some weird ghost stuff where you have to attack the Mutilator and stun them. I don't want to do this crap. A lot of the time I was alone on this arcade game, likely because other players were being teleported out to do the weird ghost stuff I just mentioned. Like honestly, I'd rather just spectate the match. The reason all this is here is because quite frankly, Mutilator matches take a while. You die 1 minute in, and then you just have to sit around for like 10 plus minutes. Whodunit was generally under 10 minutes, and could actually be really fast depending on what happens. It even encourages the murderers to rush, because healing items would respawn 5 minutes in, ammo would respawn 11 minutes in, ba BB. That on top of the time limit the murderer already has. But here, unless everyone dies, it's a forced like 10 or so minutes before the final battle. I'll give credit where it's due though, the ambience is pretty good, hearing the sound of the chainsaw killer getting closer and closer, it's pretty intense, and the maps are super good, what little I've actually seen of them. But I'm here to play Whodunit, And while this could be seen as a fun side bonus every once in a while, I'd rather just play Whodunit. It's what I came here to play, not Dark Maze Adventure, not Camp Fiesta, and not this arcade stuff. My favorite part of Whodunit was the skillful battles between murderers and innocents. A good innocent could flip the tables and single-handedly take out the murderer. So many dynamic plays could be made, like maybe I'll grab the pool cue weapon to stun the murderer and chill with the group. Or I'll move all these bricks to this open part of the map and actually become the prick that was throwing bricks. But just in case if the murderer tries to take the bricks away, I have a shovel hidden in the back. That's the stuff I love. Mutilator is just a generic asymmetrical horror game where you can't defend yourself against the overpowered killer. It's not super unique, and in a lot of ways, it's the antithesis of what Whodunit is, and why it has lived for so long. So by now, you're probably hovering over the report button and wondering why the hell I haven't talked about Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch. That's its own rabbit hole, or maybe more in my taste, its own robot hole. What I'm trying to say is that I actually got into Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch kinda late. When I got in, Justified Classes was the big thing. Yeah, I don't know where CBM it was at the time, maybe it didn't exist. I kinda want to cover Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch all on its own. I mean, I haven't even really beaten the single player campaign yet. I was all about the multiplayer action. And there's been a ton of crazy and unique and cool mods for it. I mean, class-based modification, that mod has like over 100 classes of all the different Mega Man characters. Bro, I've played this more than I've played all the official Mega Man games combined. I know, fake fan, and considering I haven't even beaten the main campaign of Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch, double fake fan. Sadly, the Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch community is kinda split between role players who just screw around, which I'm totally cool with by the way, do your dues, you dig? Or sweat lords that will make fun of you for playing in public servers and not joining tournaments. We'll call them clan members. So with these two big splits, a lot of the fun casual stuff that falls in between is kinda niche. There's a ton of pretty crazy mods, but you just never see them. It's just Hotel with the chillers or CCBM with the sweaters. Though I can't wait to tell you all the story about how I beat a clan member in a duel and they got so pissed that the whole clan left the server and proceeded to nerf the class that I was playing the very next patch. And now that's funny. It's like the bullies you'd see in like a Disney movie or something. You beat the leader and they're like, "Oh, we'll get you next time, Spacey," and proceed to all leave in a line. And I guess that's kind of where the Doom multiplayer community, at least in terms of Zandronum, is today. This has been going on for a while, but it's really just Mega Man 8-Bit Deathmatch and Complex Doom. Sometimes you'll see stuff like Whodunit. Complex Doom is kind of whack. The most fun I had on it was a very large survival server, like nearly full, because it's just a bunch of people running around getting destroyed by overpowered monsters. It's every person for themselves and it's honestly really funny. What's not funny is like the 1,000 mods I'm forced to download when joining a server. So I guess that's my very brisk recollection of the near decade I've spent playing goddamn multiplayer Doom. I definitely didn't cover everything because I guess you just had to be there for most of it, you know? It's just not the same saying it now. Whenever I say the Doom community is pretty terrible, I mostly mean the multiplayer side of things. I have a lot of cool talks with just general modders and such. If anything, the multiplayer community is a very small portion of concentrated degenerates. But also, sadly, this was the group I sat with at lunch throughout my entire school life. That was an analogy. Kind of weird one, but at least it didn't involve food, you know, so it's a little unique. Well, at least directly. I did mention lunch, but food wasn't really the central point of the analogy, you know? Don't get things twisted, I don't hang with these people. A pretty good amount of the mods I mentioned here contain pretty offensive jabs at certain groups, and I don't endorse or support any of that crap. It's why I don't like talking about these mods or the people that made them. They aren't worth my time, and trust me, the players were even worse in that regard, and arguably still are. It might come as a surprise, but even being in the pit of this community, I never used any of those words like that. Maybe that goes to show something. Don't blame the people around you for who you are. You can only blame yourself. Something like that, I guess. I mean, this is just a video game community, I suppose. I just liked playing Doom and having fun. I didn't care for the people throwing slurs, fighting each other, all that. I just wanted to play a video game and have a good time. I mean, what do you guys play games for? If you plan on playing Doom multiplayer, at least on Zandronum, just know that you can permanently ignore people and F8 turns off chat in general. or host private servers with their friends. I can definitely see why a lot of people do that now, and maybe why not a lot of people play Doom Online. I myself kinda still play Doom Online, very rarely, usually just CCBM, maybe any of the other mods if they show up, but that's mostly because people just play CCBM. And that's not to say throughout this I didn't play single player Doom mods and such, because I did. How do you think I know about some of these rather old and obscure mods? It was cool to talk and see what mod creators were coming up with. A lot of new faces that would eventually make big splashes were entering, and a lot of people I'll never forget. I don't know who this video was for. I'm not even sure if this was very entertaining, but I had fun recounting some of these stories. You know, hopefully I cleansed my sins of being in a clan that terrible and just being in a crappy community. I know it seems like I painted the multiplayer community as pretty unfriendly and terrible, and yeah, I did. And I know what you're thinking. There's a mod I haven't talked about that had quite the popularity in both Doom single player and multiplayer, a mod that maybe even changed modding in general. Spacey, when are you gonna talk about Brutal Doom? Brutal Doom? More like Brutal Dumb. That's not foreshadowing, I'm never gonna look at Brutal Doom.